hate it when somebody talks to you when you've just eaten. I'll do my very best to keep it lively. I do have a handout. I'm sort of from the old school. I have no idea how to use PowerPoint, don't want to learn how to use PowerPoint, love paper. One reason I love paper is because you'll see on the left-hand column of the paper that you're being handed, there is contact information for me as well as another attorney who does estate planning, whose name is Patrick Perkins, who also serves on the board of Hartford Family House. And I have the pleasure of working with his wife as our office manager, and so therefore she put that handout together. I love passing off duties. I just have a quick story. I came on the board about the time that John Vardavas did, in I think it was 2004 time frame. I was just starting my own practice. I'd worked at a big law firm in Baltimore. I was starting my own practice here in Hartford County. And about 3 years into that, I started teaching business law at Hartford Community College. And I was trying to explain to the students in a commercial paper lecture, which we talked about, a snoozer, doing my very best to keep them awake. And I was explaining to them how to endorse a check to someone else. And at the time, I was working at Ripken Stadium because I just wasn't too far in my practice and I wasn't making a lot of money and I wanted to donate to Hartford Family House. So I was an usher, but I just signed the check over to Hartford Family House, which was real easy to explain to them. I said, I get a check from Ripken Baseball, I turn it over on the back and I explained it, and I say I put pay to the order of Hartford Family House. And then I just collect them all at the end of the season. I gave them my tips and my check, and it was kind of cool. And Joy Duke, who was introduced earlier as a former board member, raised her hand and she said, "Don't you mean Holy Family House?" And I said, "Oh no, we're not holy anymore." I really didn't need it to come out. What I meant to say was we don't have that in our title. But here's what happened. After class, she didn't say this in front of the class, but she said, "I used to live there." And she explained to me the situation about her and her daughter having to move there because of an abuse situation with her husband. And anyway, it was kind of cool. And then I sort of reconnected her with Hartford Family House, the people who were on the board at the time. And then she ended up helping us with speaking at an event and served on the board. And now she graduated from Hartford Community College doing incredibly well. Her daughter is a genius and is also going to Hartford Community College, and it's just a neat story to watch that come around. But there I am at Hartford Community College teaching, and all of a sudden somebody knows Holy Family House. It was just kind of cool, because you try to explain it to people, but she understood because she was in it. I just want to talk to you very briefly about giving away your money. And I know that a lot of people these days don't have a lot to give away. The economy is really, really stinky. We all know that. Many of you are probably on some kind of fixed income. And so there's not a lot of extra money. So let me talk to you a little bit about how to make a charitable bequest via some vehicle that you don't have to pass the money right now, which is kind of neat. And I will just give you a small example. I have a client who has a small retirement account, an IRA, and they said, "You know what, I would like to beneficiary designate this to a charity." So I said, well, that's a really great idea, because if you donate your IRA to a charity, no income taxes come out. So if you get the money from the IRA, you're taxed because it's pre-taxed money. But if you donate it to a charity, no taxes come out. Cool. Okay. Not if it's $1 million, right? There's some limit, right, John?
I don't know what it is.
But there is, Mr. Accountant. I'm sorry. Anyway, that is a pretty cool way to maximize your dollars if you have any kind of charitable intent. And I just thought, that's something that we can do. So I have done that on a small IRA because I do have nieces and nephews who want money from me. They're already talking about it. They want to know when I'm going to die. They check the life expectancy tables. So the first thing you have to do is, first of all, you have to be charitable in some way. You would not be in this room if you didn't have some charitable bones in your body. Okay. So how do you decide how much you're going to leave? And I have people asking me all this all the time. Do I give a dollar amount or do I give a percentage? And I say, you know, this is your will or this is your trust. You decide whatever you give. But whatever it is, if you don't have a lot of money now, but you have life insurance, retirement accounts, and that sort of thing that you can do something in the future, estate planning is the best way to do it, because you can name a charity to be the beneficiary of your assets when you no longer need them. So your family is generally understanding, because if they know you very well, they know you're charitable. So it's not like they're going to say, I can't believe Mom didn't leave 100% to me. So I have people leaving 2% or 10% or whatever they choose to their charity. And then have other people who don't have a big estate and they leave a dollar amount. But either one is fine. You decide how much you want to leave, and you put it in your trust or your will. Now then you decide the type of investment asset, however you want to do it. Do you do an outright gift, or do you leave it specifically for a thing? For instance, do we want to use it for the general operating fund? They're saying yes. Yes, please, general operating fund. Or do you want to leave it for a specific thing for the specific foundation? If it's a foundation fund, do you want to leave it to the foundation for a particular educational fund or whatever? I have a client who's leaving a big old chunk of money to the community foundation for educational purposes, and that is it. Whatever educational purposes, which is very broadly defined, which is why Tammy will be meeting with them to figure something out in the near future. The other thing is a specific bequest or a specific purpose, like educating people on budgeting or something like that. You can be as specific as you want or as general as you want. And then a lot of people will say, well, I'm going to leave $10,000 to each of my nieces and nephews, and I have 6 of them, so that's $60,000, and whatever I have left is going to Hartford Family House, for whatever Hartford Family House wants to use it for according to what the board decides. That residuary is a big chunk a lot of times. So there are people in the world who have a lot of money and who don't have family and who are going to leave their money in that fashion. I have a client who's leaving the residuary, you're not going to believe this, to fund equipment to do genealogy research. And I just want to say, oh, no, but it's not my job to say that's really not as good a purpose as other things could be. And they do have a lot of money, so we're still working on them, massaging that relationship. But because they love it, and they think the archives in Annapolis needs more equipment, so for whatever reason. But the residuary is one way to leave it. Or the contingent plan. You know, it would be a horrible thing if your entire family passed away in a tragedy. But if all the children and the grandchildren and you and everybody else that is in your family were to pass away, you got to have a backup plan, a contingent plan. So there are many, many, many people in my estate planning world who do that. They say, if there's a tragedy, and we only travel 3 or 4 times a year together as a family when we go on group trips, but if we all go together, then this is what is going to happen. And a charity is a great way to do that, because let me explain to you a little bit about inheritance tax in about 30 seconds. If you leave your estate to a lineal descendant, parents, grandparents, children, grandchildren, siblings, no inheritance tax in the state of Maryland. If you leave it collaterally, aunt, uncle, cousin, niece, nephew, 10% inheritance tax. So a lot of people will say, well, I want to leave, if my estate is taxable, I want to leave it to a charity. So we word it so that if there's going to be a tax, we want to make sure there's no tax by leaving some to the charity. You can do anything you want. But the contingent plan, a lot of times, is much better leaving it to a charity than a cousin you haven't seen in 40 years or more. So that's a contingent plan. And you need to have a will in order for that to happen. So you can't say, oh, I don't need a will, I don't have anything. Nobody doesn't have anything. Is that enough negatives in that sentence? Everybody's got something, okay? I think. The last thing is the source. And I talked a little bit about this when I first started. If you have an account that you can beneficiary designate to a charity, do it. It may only be a $5,000 CD or a $10,000 CD. Just beneficiary designate it. It goes directly to the charity. There's no waiting time. There's no horrible probate, as people say. And you can do that exactly like that. Any other asset, not just an IRA, any bank account, CD, you can pass it on death to a particular person or entity. It's a great way to leave a bequest that goes immediately. Okay. The other thing is, if you put the bequest in your last will and testament, you have to wait for the probate period, which is at least 6 months in Maryland, usually no more than 9 months unless there are some issues regarding selling real estate and it takes longer, etc. But you can leave it in your will, and you can say anything you want in your will. I've had some really strange bequests in the will. Pet trusts. I have a fund to take care of a cemetery forever and ever and ever. It's going to be the greenest grass in Fork, Maryland. But you can do that in a will, you can do it in a trust. And a lot of people say, well, I got to have a trust because we have to avoid probate, so I'm going to do it in a trust. I don't really care. I just care if you're charitable. That's my point if I'm talking on behalf of a charity. Now, do I care if I'm an attorney? Both work. Will versus trust, it really doesn't matter. Just say it in the document. Because you don't want anybody to come back later and say, well, she said that she was going to leave something to Hartford Family House, so when do we get that? Well, guess what? She never said it. It's not on paper. It's not on paper. So if you want to be charitable, you have to take action. That's all I'm going to say. Just take action. I will tell you this. On this piece of paper where I'm at the top, Patrick's at the bottom, even though Pat's address is Baltimore, he lives in Hartford County, and so he is more than happy to assist you with your estate planning, as am I. My focus is generally elder law. So I help retirees and seniors, not just with their estate planning, but with other long-term issues that might come up if you need care and that sort of thing. So if we can be helpful in any way, you're welcome to give us a call.